Welcome to the Mama Making Podcast, a space for moms figuring it out in real time. This show is here to help you feel a little less alone in the mess and magic of motherhood. If that sounds like your kind of vibe, make sure to follow the show, share it with a friend, and keep showing up, exactly as you are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mama Making Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. I am so excited to have this guest today. Her name is Allison Hardy. She is a mom of two and an email marketing strategist. She has built a thriving multi-six-figure business around the realities of motherhood. She's been known for helping women create sustainable businesses that support their lives, energy, and seasons without all the hustle. Through her entrepreneurial journey, including her signature membership, she's learned to honor intuition, identity, and the messy middle of motherhood. Thank you so much for being here.
Jessica, thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate you.
Yes, I'm so excited. We met because of the Secret Moms podcast. Do you want to share a little bit about that to start?
Yeah. So the Secret Lives CEO Moms is a private podcast that my amazing friend Belinda Rosenblum and I host at least once a year, sometimes 2 times a year. And it pulls back the curtain and talks about what it's like to grow a business, raise a family, and as you said, the messy middle of how all of that happens.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I was so honored to be on one of the panels. I was mostly excited to be on the same bill as Rebecca Minkoff, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really great.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad it was a good experience for you. I love hosting it. It's super fun.
Yeah, there's so many great stories and personalities and people from all over the place. So highly recommend for the next time around.
Well, thank you for that.
So tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, where you're from, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. My name is Allison Hardy. I live in Arlington, Virginia. I see the Washington Monument in DC from my backyard. So, we're like a stone's throw from DC. I've got 2 kids. I've got a 12-year-old named Camden. I have a 7-year-old named Nora. My husband is named Tier, like beer, but with a T. He's a pastor here in Northern Virginia and does a lot of work within the church around social justice and inclusivity, which is really important work. So I'm thrilled to support him in that. And my business helps people sell on autopilot. A lot of my folks come to me and they're like, holy guacamole, I just want to do more of the thing that I started my business to do. Like, I'm so tired of launching. Like, yes, it works, but like, I'm tired of only making money a couple times a year. So what I help them do is instead of sell, 3 times a year, just sell something every single day. So our nervous systems are more regulated. It fits more into our lives and it helps them to scale their businesses in a lot simpler of a way.
Love that. Tell me, how did this all begin? Where were you in your motherhood journey? What did you do prior to this? And how did you your journey, your entrepreneurial journey from beginning to where you are now?
Yeah. So, graduated from college. I was the first person in my family to ever graduate from college. I went on to get a master's of fine art in painting. I taught at the college level. I had the job. I did all the right things. I got married. We got pregnant. And then when I was 6 months pregnant, I got called into HR and I was like, what's going on? I had no idea why I was there. And I was laid off. So here I am, way pregnant with let's call it like it is, skills that are amazing to have, but nobody really needs a lot of. It's not like college level painting jobs are common. So I was like, what am I going to do to make money? Because at the time, my husband was a youth director at a church, making literally $25,000 a year. So I had to work and it was not an option for me to take, 3 months off. That was never on the table. So I started this crazy business of doing personal training, which I know sounds so strange, in my backyard. I would have my friends over, I'd have my clients over. We'd work out on Saturday mornings. We'd have mimosas or virgin mimosas afterwards. And it was great and I loved it. But what I realized I did was I created another 9 to 5 for myself. So I was still very much so trading dollars for hours because I didn't know anything else around that, right? So my business grew. It was wonderful. It was great. But there came a point where I was like, this no longer works. I am capped. I cannot physically give any more hours in order to make more money. And then that amazing thing called postpartum depression hit. And I was like, I really can't do this now. Like something has to give. So that's when I got really, really sold on the idea of systems, of email marketing, having the ability to be able to sell every single day and like what that actually looks like. And I started to see success as I built that out. And then people started asking me, like, how are you doing this? And I was like, well, I mean, I just kind of like got nerdy and like figured out how to sell and like stuff that I thought was like pretty obvious, but I realized that a lot of people had a really hard time with it. So through, people asking me to help them with specific things like systems and email marketing and automation, I eventually shut down that personal training business and just went full on into email marketing. And at first I was doing it for people, and then I put my entire system into a membership that I teach inside of my membership called Emails That Sell.
I love that. Was there ever a plan to be an entrepreneur or just your life circumstances brought you there? What was the grander vision if you had one?
Yeah, no, it was to be a tenure track college art professor. Like I had no desire to ever be an entrepreneur. I also like it was also never presented to me, right? So I came from like a very blue collar family. It was strange enough that I like actually went to college. It was even stranger that I majored in art, and just like straight up weird that I went to graduate school so that I could teach college level art. Like my family did not understand it. So like for me, just being in that space and having the background, it was like, I'm very proud of what I've created. I did it all myself. Nobody gave it to me. I worked really hard. And so, like, a lot of my identity was wrapped up in I'm a college level art professor. And so, like, that's what I was going to do. And when I got that job, I was like, this is it. Like, I did, like, the work paid off and I busted my rear end to make it happen and I got it. And so, like, that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. That was the plan. And then, life happened and came at me really hard. So here we are.
Yeah, it's so interesting. My story is not similar whatsoever, but I think a lot of women specifically can identify with the thought of I am doing what I'm meant to do, and then life just throws you a curveball, whatever that might look like. And I think there's definitely something to pivoting and completely going against what you thought you would be doing. There's so much of your identity wrapped up in like what we do for work, which I know is a huge thing for moms because as you go through that motherhood transition, you're like, okay, who am I now? And I didn't really realize until I got laid off from my job that I was like, oh, I have a major attachment to whoever people think I am as this profession. And like you said, I worked super hard. I worked my way up. And to suddenly be like, oh, I need to make a different path and how am I going to do that? Like, this is what I've done. I think a lot of women, like I said, but also moms can identify with that.
Yes, for sure. And, I always had the feeling in the back of my head that like that job I had was probably not the best fit for someone that had a family or someone that had kids because nobody around me had a family. Nobody around me was still married. And so I always had this like feeling that like, crap, I don't know if this is actually going to work? So when I got laid off, as terrible as it was, and how it was done was so bad, and like just the timing was like atrocious, it was kind of a little bit of a relief because it finally allowed me to be like, you know what? Maybe there's other things that I can explore. At first, like, let's call it like it is. It's not like I was making a ton of money teaching. Like, you don't make a lot of money for teaching, but like, it wasn't that hard to replace that income. So I was like, okay, if when I like finally was able to like see the bigger picture, like if I could replace my income in like significantly less time and not constantly have to attend meetings and board meetings and go through the tenure process and do reviews and like everything that comes with teaching. And like those things are there for a reason. But like if I don't have to do any of that, like how would that serve me? How would that serve my family? How would I serve this like vision for how I want my family to operate? And entrepreneurship just made sense. And it facilitated also my husband going into ministry and like being like, yes, I do want to be a pastor because we're in the United Methodist Church. We move a lot. We move like every 2, 3, 4 years. And with my job, I was stuck there. Like, it's not like I was going to be able to move. So it really opened up a lot for my family in that my husband was then able to like pursue ministry. And that's been wonderful. So like, it was terrible and hard, but it really created a lot of good change for us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we're not gonna anybody is not gonna do something drastic or completely change careers or completely change their life just because they feel like it. Sometimes it is that, like, big, scary life event that happens to push you over the edge to move on to something else, whether you know what it is or you have to kind of create it yourself, and it really seems like that's what you did to kind of take your life circumstance, where you were at in life, and kind of create your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like I said earlier, I had to. Like it's not like I couldn't work. So part of it was just like straight up like out of necessity. But the other part of it was I was like, okay, I can take a bit of a hot minute and like be like, what do I want? And ask myself that question. Cause I'd never had the time or the space to ever do that. So it was I'm not saying it was easy, but it was a at the end of the day, it was a good thing that happened.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of what's interesting to me and why I've kind of taken a pivot on the Mama Making podcast to more of a entrepreneurial focus. Obviously, we'll talk about mom stuff and birth stories and all of that stuff all day long. But through doing all of that, I have found so many women who have found their way into entrepreneurship after having children because it just you can make it fit your life space. Like you said, it's not always easy. It's going to be hard in some parts, but I think it's truly the one thing that will allow us as moms and a lot of times primary caregivers to be able to do the school drop off and go to the field trip or whatever it is. And like you said, your husband was in a season where he needed more flexibility to be able to do what he had to do. There's so much ebbs and flows in family, and I think entrepreneurship provides us the opportunity to do that no other job could.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought teaching, on paper, it seemed really flexible. So I was like, I think this could work, but like again, it like wasn't. It just wasn't set up for us. So yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship has been a wild ride, but at the end of the day, I'm thrilled that I am here and I have this business and that I like get to talk to you, which is amazing, right? Like I don't like I couldn't do these things.
Yeah, and I would love to chat more about, like, the pressure we have to do it all as moms and how that has kind of been a pillar of your business to move with those ebbs and flows and that it doesn't have to be this, like, big chaos that we all feel it is. How is that idea kind of integrated with your business and your business model?
Yeah, I think that I had to integrate. So I live, like I said, in Arlington, Virginia. I live in like lobbyist central, like people that you see on CNN, like go to church with me. So like there's just like a lot of like high powered folks that live here. And, I see it in everything. I see it in like my kids' academics and like how they're taught. I see it in how people interact with me and how they interact with other people. And like I see it throughout like just how life is here in Virginia. It is very much so like high pressured, overachievers, like you got to be the best at all the things all the time. And so I do think that can spill over into entrepreneurship. But what I came to the realization of like very early on when I was like a new mom dealing with postpartum depression, being like, holy guacamole, I need another 9 to 5 for myself. Like, what am I doing? Is that like, I think of it like levers, right? So you can like pull certain levers at certain times to achieve certain goals. So like, yeah, when in the school year, like I am when my kids are in school, like I'm working. Like there is no negotiations around that. When they're not in school, like I can make the choice, which is kind of awesome. I love that I get to choose things. I can make the choice to like put them in something. So like find care, send them to a camp, or I can take the time off because I know there's another lever I can choose or I can pull to still get me the same results, but like in a different way. So I think that a lot of times in entrepreneurship, we think that things have to be done a certain way, or in life in general, we think things that have to be done like a certain specific way. But if we can like zoom out and really think about things from an entrepreneurial mindset, I do think that like the entrepreneurial mindset is a huge advantage for us that like you can kind of see and you can figure out, okay, like while like this is the end goal, yes, that's awesome and great. The way that I've been getting there, I don't want to do that anymore. So what's my alternative? And we can do that with, our businesses, we can do it with our kids, we can do it in our relationships, we can do it in our community. And I think it just makes us even more powerful and even more an asset because we have that entrepreneurial mindset. And I don't know if that actually answered your question.
No, it totally does. I think it is interesting to figure out like what balance really is and does it exist. And I think that that is the lever example is perfect because it's like some things can be on and some things have to be off. And figuring out what your balance looks like is different for everyone. I personally don't know that balance exists simply because it's always changing. What
Yes.
season you're in right now is going to be so different from the one you come up against in a month from now. And you never know what's coming. So I think creating a sustainable system for yourself, whether it is in motherhood or it is in business, I think is key to figuring out what works for you. How have you Obviously, you talked about how you've done that for yourself, but how are you able to do that with your clients? Can you give some examples of what that looks like for other mom entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I do email marketing, right? So I'm inside of people's email marketing systems, seeing what's working for them, seeing what's not. So I think the number one thing when it comes to email marketing, not I think, the number one thing when it comes to email marketing is looking at the gosh darn numbers. And I know that everyone just like glazes over when I say that because it's so not sexy and it takes time and blah, and like can expose things that aren't working. But what that allows us to do is understand what's actually going on with your emails, with your marketing systems. And once you know that information, you can stop doing the things that aren't working and do more of the things that are working. And again, super not exciting, super not sexy, but like it will be the thing that really helps you to understand what's going on in your gosh darn business. So for my clients, what we work on a lot is an email funnel. So that's just a series of automated emails that gets delivered after someone downloads the lead magnet, your freebie, your opt-in, whatever you want to call it. When it comes to those email funnels, like I think about them as a launch. Like they're just a launch that's like not front and center, right? It's like running in the background. Putting information in those emails that gets the reader, the consumer of the emails to think about the pain point that they have that you solve differently, to maybe do something to help them get some momentum to move forward and to be like, that wasn't that hard. Okay, cool. Like nobody died. Like let's move on to the next thing. So like they understand more about what that actually looks like for them. But and it really just it all goes back to understanding the data and having an actual strategy that you can lean on and you can put in place that makes sense for you, for your business, for your offer, and for your people.
Yeah, something that I am always interested in is knowing the systems that people put in place that kind of make business and motherhood easy. What are some of the things that you have found or have found from your clients from utilizing these kind of systems that make life just easier?
Yeah. So when I think about like email marketing systems, like I have a 12-month email funnel. And the reason why I have a 12-month email funnel is because I know that when you come into my world, you through like a lead magnet, when you go onto my email list, you are taken care of for 12 months. And for me, that feels so good. And it feels so good because I know, if I get sick, oh, my kids get sick because goodness gracious, those germs they pick up at school are no joke. Like things are taken care of. And so like that for me is like the number one thing, like getting people into my email funnel because again, they're taken care of for 12 whole months. And then like the other side of it is like, how do people get into the funnel? That's always the question, right? So I think about it in two kind of ways. I think of like what's an automated way that people can get into a funnel, or like what's a way that I can create content that lives forever so that people can get into the funnel. So for me, that's like Facebook and Instagram ads. I have a podcast, but I also started leaning harder, or actually not harder, hard. I never did this before. I'm learning Pinterest. So like what does Pinterest marketing actually look like for me and how can I utilize it in a way to generate leads? So like that's the automated side of things. And then like so I can lean on that, right? Like if it's summertime and my kid is going to like 4-day long travel baseball tournaments and like I have to tag in and like be the one doing that, like I can show up because I know those things are running in the background. And then the more live side of things is like I love, love, love collaborations. Like I love coming on other people's podcasts. I love having a podcast. I like hosting bundles. I like doing private podcast series, like that more live work. I love doing all that stuff. So like I grant myself time and space to do that because that again fills my cup and like it speaks to like many of the ways I think about community and building community and intentional community. And so like it allows me that more like creative side of things to like do these things that I like, it's all an experiment. So let's try it out and see what happens, because I have that peace of mind that that other side of things is squared away. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to pivot to talk a little bit more about the concept of getting your time back, whether that is in business or motherhood. I think things like this where we're creating systems, whether in our work or our family system that gives us our time back. What does that look like for you?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. So at home, it is, and this sounds so basic, but for me, this was like so revolutionary. It was having a few key things in my pantry and in my freezer at all times, so that I know that if like I have no idea what I'm going to make for dinner tonight, that's like a huge stressor for me, is like not knowing what I'm going to make for dinner. I know that I can pull something from my pantry and my freezer and like we're good. I love knowing that. So for me also, what that looks like is like I go to Costco every other week. I go every Friday or every other Friday. I get there when they open at 9:30, so it's not super stressful. But like it's Wednesday now, I'm going on Friday. Like it's just part of my schedule. So like having the things on hand that I know actually can help us, and it doesn't require more brain space. Like for me, that was just like revolutionary. And I know again that seems so minuscule, but like around the house, I have like those electric vacuums. What are they called? Roombas. I have Roombas. Run those every day. So I know when I'm walking across the carpet, like I'm not gonna like step on a bunch of junk because I hate that. So like things like that, like make like developing like a system for how I want my home to operate. I think that has been super imperative because it also gets rid of decision fatigue in those specific areas. So, like for me, not knowing what I'm going to cook for dinner and it's 3 o'clock and like I'm like, oh my gosh, like dinner has to be in 2 hours. Like I hate that feeling. So it helps to alleviate the stressors that I feel in my daily life.
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's so many different areas that we could be like, okay, what is like you said, pain points. What is my pain point in my household currently? For me, my pain point was that I have a 3-year-old, so I constantly need to be giving snacks
Yeah.
and wiping down counters and
Well,
vacuuming. And it's not
yeah.
something I have time to do a ton. So we have a cleaning lady. I have her come once a week for 2 hours, and all she does is wipe down my surfaces, counters, bathrooms, vacuums my floor, and Swiffers it. And for me, that gives me 2 hours a week that I can rededicate to work or doing the laundry, whatever happens needs to get done. And it doesn't cost a ton, but the mental space of knowing that like my house is going to be clean for 3 days is 3 days is probably generous, but knowing that that task is taken care of just frees up so much more mental space for me. I didn't ever realize how much my environment contributed to like the regular chaos. So for me, it was like, okay, it's only 2 hours a week, but it could be for the week long. I know my stuff is taken care of and it's less that I have to do at the end of the day. And I
Yes.
think it's definitely like a work in progress for me. I feel like I'm still in the thick of it with early motherhood. I'm still in the beginning stages of building a business and building my podcast. And I swear each quarter I'm changing like what my priorities are. And for me, like I said, I didn't realize how big of a difference it made to have a clean house, and that like when the sink is full, my chaos meter is going higher and higher. So I just recently started dedicating my Mondays because I do school drop off, I do school pickup, I go to pick him back up at my parents' house. So I'm like driving back and forth all day, and that doesn't leave me very much time to sit and get work done. So rather than like sitting and trying to get something done, I have dedicated my Mondays to doing all the laundry, cleaning up the house, doing any like work projects I have or like home projects I have, just because I know that my time is going to be sporadic and I'm better served to work a full day Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a half day Friday to get my stuff done for my projects and work and my podcast. And I know that my household stuff is done like right in the beginning of the week, which is so helpful for me.
Absolutely. My son does travel baseball. And so during the summers, like the amount of like dirt that enters into my home makes me into a crazy person. And just like what you just said, I didn't realize the mental load that that had on me. So like also like a time thing. So like I was literally like cleaning the floors like every day. I would spend time cleaning the floors every day. And then I was like, what am I doing? Why am I spending like, can I just do this one day a week? And like, can I just deal with the dirt for like the couple days knowing that on this other day, like every Friday, let's say, like everything's going to get cleaned. So I think when you can also like compartmentalize certain things and like assign a day to doing something, it makes it so much easier to be like, okay, that's getting taken care of on Monday, or that's what happens on Tuesday. And so it's like understanding the stressors and like what's weighing on you. Like you said, your home, like I'm the same way. Like the sticky counters blah, makes me into a crazy person. And I'm not like a clean freak. I just don't like to get, stuff on my hands when I touch the counter. Like that sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
blah. So like knowing that it's coming up and like, okay, this is going to get resolved on whatever day is so powerful. And we, like you in the summers, hire a cleaning person because I can't keep up with it. And like my husband, like we tag team it and we can't keep up with it. And like we even bring our kids in on it. Like they're old enough now that they could do it. And like we still have a hard time with it. So getting that outside help for someone who's also not emotionally attached to it so they can do it quicker than you probably is just such a lifesaver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point to pivot a bit and talk a little bit more about raising kids. Your kids are a bit older than my kids are, and so I love to hear from other more seasoned moms on how the work that you're doing with your clients, how does that kind of integrate with raising your kids in terms of teaching them about business and entrepreneurship and most of all leadership? What does that kind of all look like for your family?
So it's funny, the other day, my daughter, Nora, who's 7, who also like doesn't have a filter and is like one of the most strong-willed people I've ever met in my entire life, was like, she came off the bus and she was like, so and so, like a friend of hers, mom doesn't get her off the bus. And I was like, yeah, her mom probably works like at an office or, at a like a 9 to 5. And she was like, well, that's a difference. Cause we were always talking about differences in families, right? So like certain families do things certain ways, we do them this way. It's all cool and great, but like this is how we do things and this is why. She's like, that got me thinking, mom, that different families do things differently. I was like, yeah, girl, they do. She goes, why don't you work in an office? Or why do you get me off the bus every day? Or dad get me off the bus every day? I don't have to go to like aftercare. So like, why is that? And I was like, well, we've built our business and dad's job is like weirdly flexible during the week. So like, yeah, there are days where, he picks you up or I pick you up, but yeah, one of your parents gets you off the bus every day. And she's like, that is just such a cool thing. And I didn't realize that other families just set up differently in that. And I was like, yeah. So like, I think that it's not necessarily like an intentional thing that we're like leading our kids in. It's just like showing them by doing. And especially when they're younger, things like you don't like, it's not like you're going to sit there and talk to them about leadership. But like, they'll hear me talk about my business. I'll be like, oh yeah, I helped this mom. Her son's has autism. And so he has lots of like therapy appointments and they're really trying to get him support. But also like that work we did together 3 months ago brought in $10,000 in sales for her the other day. And I'll just like talk about it. And they like my son who's 12 now will like have enough like, tell me more about that, mom. So like we can have those sorts of conversations. So I think it's also just like a matter of just talking about it, like this is what we do, this is how we help people, and this is why it's important, and helping them to also experience it. So what I like to do, like after, if I ever do like a live launch, we always like do something after the live launch to like celebrate, even if the live launch didn't go well, which let's call it like it is, happens a lot these days. And not in a bad way, but like because things are changing and launches are performing differently now. But we always do something. And I always make a point to say, like, hey, we're doing this because we just did this thing in our business and we were able to help 10 people do X, Y, and Z. And that's great. So, like, things like that just help them to understand more about, like, why we think my work is important, how it impacts our family and how it impacts other people's families. Cause I think that's really like the thing for them and how they're just wired is I think like, okay, this is like actually helping someone in the world. Cause they see my husband, right? They see my husband giving sermons and like doing community assistance and doing all the work he does. They don't see it from me because they're at work or not they're at work. They're at school and I'm, working while they're at school. So it's just a very different experience. So I do find it's super helpful for me to go out of my way a bit just to like bring up the business and help them to see what it looks like.
Yeah, it's so fun and interesting to see what kids pick up, like, just by osmosis. And, like, I have a three-year-old, and so he has, like, a very vague concept of what work is, but my husband travels for work a ton, so we have made a point that anytime dad comes home from a trip, we almost immediately go to get ice cream because we don't want it to be, like, a negative thing, like, dad's
I
gone,
love
he's on a
that.
trip, so we'll go
Yeah.
get ice cream and then talk about what his trip was like, and most of the time, it's like, "I talked to this person, and we worked on blah, blah, blah." And it's interesting on like you said, on this side of things, he's gone at school or gone at grandma's house, and I'm in my office working, and he knows when he comes home, he's like, "This is mom's office, she's working." And it was just recently that, I'm a big podcast listener, so I was listening to a podcast, it was over. Obviously, I'm subscribed to my own podcast, and my podcast intro came up, and my son was like, "That's my mommy," and was, like, so excited. He's like, "That's my mom." And so it's so interesting to see, like, where they're picking up connections, and I obviously have my podcast mic in my office, and so he's, like, making all the connections of, like, this is where my mom does the thing, and so it's so fun to see where they pick up just like little nuggets of what we're doing. And obviously there's such in the grand scheme we're doing something a lot bigger in terms of like raising kids and having them be aware of what life is. But I
Mhm.
think to show kids that there's so many different opportunities for you that aren't just being a doctor, being a teacher, not that those are obviously they're incredible professions to have, but there's so much more out there for you to do that, they might not know about otherwise.
Yeah, like in the past year, I've gotten really into building AI bots through ChatGPT. So as I was learning how to do it, I was like, I wonder if we could like do one for my kids. And I was like, okay, what would be like one that Nora, my strong-willed 7-year-old, would like? And I was like, okay, she plays softball. So like, can we make one that's somehow centered around softball? So we landed on making a nickname generator. And then once the AI bot generates the nickname for the user, then it also assigns like a walk-up song to it. So she helped me build it, and I like asked her all the questions that I would like need to know, and like her process and how you find nicknames for people. And then like we created it, and she loves it. We named it Nora the Nicknamer, and it looks like her. So it has blonde braids and freckles, and it's all of her favorite colors. But, like, that for her, she was just like, "So you do this for other people?" I was like, "Yes, I do this for other people inside of my programs." But, like, just, like, showing her, like, "I learned this thing, and then, like, we're gonna apply it to you," was, like, a big thing for her. So she'll, like I leave my computer on all the time, which I shouldn't, but I do. She'll, like, go into ChatGPT and, like, you can see the bots on the left-hand side, and she'll be like, "What's Olivia? What does she do? And who's Phoebe? What does she do?" Because their names are there. And she'll like go in and she understands like what it is that AI bots can do. She doesn't really understand like what mine do, but like she gets it, right? So that's a really cool thing when they like get it. So like your son hearing you on the podcast, like he's like, "Oh, connection there." Like that makes sense. So it's cool when they start to like break it down and understand it.
Yeah, it's so fun. Anything else that you took away from or have continued to take away from building a business and being a mom?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. For me, like focus is really important. I have a hard time focusing on things in general. Like I'm very clear. Like I don't have a door in my office. I'm literally in the like the eat-in kitchen part of our kitchen. So I don't have a door. I see like the kitchen right here to my left. But so like we cook food. So my kids see my desk all the time. So there'll be days where it looks like a freaking bomb went off here, where it's just like whoosh. And then there'll be days where it's like nice and clean and tidy. And so they'll actually say to me, like, "What were you working on today, mom, when you made such a big mess?" I was like, I was working on this thing and I just got really into the zone. And we'll talk about like how when I'm working, I'm working. So I work when they're at school. And when they're not at school, I do my best to not work. And if I have to work when they're home, like I have boundaries within that. And so they like know that because I'll say, like, I need you to set a timer for an hour and a half. I'm gonna let you go snuggle up in my bed and you can turn on my TV and you can watch and I'll say like your favorite show. And for them, it's like a reward, like, yes, because it doesn't happen all the time. And for me, it's like, okay, girl, you've got an hour and a half. Like you better get this thing done that you need to get done. So like having these focused times to work. I remember when my kids were a lot younger and like they were little and at home, and like I didn't have that, and I didn't have the funds to like pay to have, my son babysat for 3 hours so I could get X, Y, and Z done. That was really hard. But once I was able to like actually focus on things, my business grew, and my kids finally understood, because they were also old enough, that like mom's doing this right now. So it's important that we do the thing that we really want to do so that she can do the thing that she really wants to do. And it also goes back to like, I do this thing so that I can help these people do this really cool stuff. So again, I think it kind of circles back to the idea of like having the conversations and just talking about what we did today, and, the things we failed at and things we did really, really well. And that's cool client story and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I love that. In rounding out our episode, what are some pieces of advice that you would have for a mom who wants to start her entrepreneurial journey or is in the thick of it, building a business and raising a family? What are some things you would like to share?
Yeah, like a very tangible, like nitty gritty thing is like, look at the numbers. I know, blah. Nobody likes to look at the numbers, but do it so that you can know what's working and you can know what's not working, and you can stop doing the things that aren't working. I remember when I first started my business, I was all over the social media. Like it was like the thing that I was doing. And after like a year, I was like, you know what? I think this probably isn't giving me a direct ROI. It was not selling my thing for me. What was selling my thing for me was my emails. And I was able to understand that because I looked at my numbers. So now, like, yeah, social media is still a part of my business, but it's not, what I rely on to make sales. I rely on it for other things, but not sales. So, like, number one, look at the numbers. Number two, give yourself a lot of freaking grace, because raising a business is really hard, but raising kids is even harder. And when you're doing that together, like, bless, I so much. It's so hard. So just know, like, it's going to be messy. It's going to be hard. It's going to make you question, what am I doing? Can I actually do this? But I really think that those really successful people that we all have in our industry, like the people that are like, oh my gosh, like that person has really just built this amazing business. I really think that they're just really stubborn enough that they didn't give up. Like, I don't think that there's anything there's special things about all of us, but like there's not that much difference between you and them. They've had more success than you. Yeah, but like you're capable of that success. So like knowing that they've gotten this far is just haven't given up. Like, I truly believe, like, if you keep going, there will come a point where things start to pop off, and they start to make sense, and they start to do the things you want. And it's because you have gotten to that point. You've done the work to get to that point. So, like, keep going. I know it's like a really like fluffy like sentiment, but like I really do think like the key to success is just keep going.
Yeah, I love that. Can you tell people a little bit more about what it would look like to work with you, what offers you might have coming up, and then where people can find you?
Yeah. So my main offer is my membership. It's called Emails That Sell. I teach you my entire email funnel process, start to finish, through master classes, checklists, guides, templates, really awesome AI bots that my daughter has helped name. So you'll see some funny names in there. And I would love to support you in whatever, in selling your course, your membership, your digital products, your group coaching program through that program. And then if you're looking to, collaborate in a way that is strategic, that is intentional, that is a win-win for you and for your collaborators. I love bundles. They're like literally my most favorite thing to host. And I'm coming out with a brand new course called Bundles That Build that will help you to create bundles that actually work for you, work for your collaborators, and fill your email funnel with warm leads that want to hear from you. So that's my newest offer that I'm rolling out over Black Friday weekend.
Amazing. And where can people find you?
Oh yeah, my website, AllisonHardy.com. I have a podcast. It's called Email Empires. It's going to be deep dives and nerdy episodes all about email marketing, how to use it to sell more of your thing, whatever it is that you sell. And then the occasional, what are we calling them? Empire exclusives, where I interview people on how they're making email marketing work for them.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on. This has been amazing. I've loved to chat with you again and again. And I'm so glad to have had you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jessica, for having me.
That's it for today's episode of the Mama Making Podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or follow us on social media. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.